Consider the following three objects: a knife, a yummy Ferrero Rocher chocolate, and lastly, a cigarette. Don't worry. I know that this cigarette may appear to be lit, but it's actually fake. Now, given the three objects I just showed you, what do you think they all have in common? You might be thinking, not much at all. Well, those three objects are all things that are forbidden in our schools. However, Vaccine Choice Canada, Canada's main anti-vax group, is currently suing the Ontario government to allow unvaccinated children in our classrooms. Which do you think is more dangerous? Unvaccinated kids incubating deadly diseases, or a nut chocolate? I suppose that a case could be made for either, but what is it about vaccines that causes them to have so many detractors? Why is it that we can all agree that knives, cigarettes, and nut chocolates pose health risks to children, but we cannot all agree that federally approved vaccines are universally good? To start off, we must know what a vaccine is. A vaccine is a substance that provides people with immunity to fight a particular infectious disease. It usually contains a dead or inactive pathogen like a bacterium or a virus, but sometimes it contains just one of its proteins or a toxin produced by that pathogen. The mechanism through which vaccines work has been well known since the late 18th century, and it has been corroborated by centuries of scientific research. Those substances train our immune system to recognize those pathogens by producing antibodies. That way, if we ever get attacked by one of those pathogens, our body can quickly destroy it before it is able to multiply and make us extremely sick. If this is something that has been well known for centuries, what are some of the reasons and motivations behind the anti-vaxxer movement to oppose vaccines? In my opinion, in some cases, the cause is simply misinformation, and in other cases, it's a general basic mistrust of science. Many vaccine detractors argue that vaccines don't work. However, history and facts seem to say otherwise. According to data from the World Health Organization, most routine childhood vaccines are effective for 85 to 95% of all recipients. I would like you to take a look at these statistics from the Public Health Agency of Canada. Let's compare the number of cases of these 6 preventable diseases before and after the introduction of each vaccine. The facts could not be clearer. There was an 87% decrease in cases of whooping cough, 99% decrease in cases of measles, mumps, rubella, and diphtheria, and 100% decrease in cases of polio. Speaking of polio, why have so many young people forgotten the terrible consequences of it? Polio used to leave thousands of young people paralyzed every single year. Why don't we see stiff people suffering from tetanus after a cut or an animal bite? It's precisely because vaccines have worked. Look at all of us now in the middle of a COVID-19 pandemic. Why are we so at risk of this novel coronavirus and are forced to self-quarantine with our families? It is because we do not yet have a vaccination for this new virus. Humans don't have natural immunity, and we are desperately trying to find a treatment and a vaccine. When that happens, science will be our salvation. Is there going to be an anti-vaxxer movement then? I, for one, certainly hope not. Let's talk about another issue that is a huge point of contention between anti-vaxxers and the scientific community. That is the topic of vaccine safety. Let me just state right off the bat that no vaccine is 100% safe. In fact, is anything really 100% safe? Vaccines are sometimes depicted as poisons, but the reality is that they are far from that. Some groups claim that the pathogens within a vaccine can make you sick. But like I said before, pathogens are dead or inactive. Let me ask you this, would you be afraid of a bear that's dead? How about a bear that's alive but it's inside of a cage with its mouth covered and its paws tied? Okay, so why then would you be afraid of a dead or inactive virus or bacterium? That is simply an irrational fear that is not backed up by science whatsoever. The fact is that most adverse reactions to vaccines are minor and temporary, like a sore arm, mild fever, an allergic reaction. Severe and long-lasting effects are extremely rare, and the number of deaths is statistically insignificant. For example, the annual report on vaccine safety in Ontario conducted in 2018 considered the administration of 8.6 million doses of publicly funded vaccines finding only 2.4 cases of serious adverse events per million doses. Those severe reactions include anaphylaxis, seizures, weakness in the injection arm, and other events that required hospitalization. However, how many of those resulted in death? None at all. The safety record of vaccines is one of the reasons why they are recommended in the first place. They are used because they work and because their benefits far outweigh their risks. It's a lot safer to vaccinate people than to let them acquire natural immunity by letting them contract very dangerous diseases. For example, the death rate of measles is 2 in 1,000 reported cases. On the contrary, the MMR vaccine that protects from measles produces encephalitis or severe allergic reaction, not death, in only 1 for every million people vaccinated. I want to talk about a specific vaccine that has been particularly vilified, the MMR, measles, mumps, rubella. Many people mistakenly believe that there is a link between the MMR vaccine and autism. This is something that is frustrating to the scientific community because this misconception has been discredited time and time again. But people continue to repeat the same false narrative. How exactly did this false narrative begin? It all began with a discredited study published by an English so-called doctor in 1998. His name was Andrew Wakefield, and his representative sample consisted of just 12 patients, and 8 of those patients' parents were already opposed to vaccines in the first place. That's equivalent to going to an ice cream shop to conduct a survey about people's favorite dessert and getting the very predictable result that ice cream will rank as a top choice. Your results are bound to be biased. Additionally, Wakefield was hired by a lawyer to find evidence that the MMR vaccine was dangerous, and Wakefield even filed a patent for his own measles vaccine that was about to compete with the MMR vaccine, so there was clearly a conflict of interest at play. Due to his dishonesty and his unethical behavior, he was forbidden from practicing medicine, and his scientific paper was retracted by the journal that had published it. I'd like to say that was that, but the damage had already been done. His elaborate fraud is a flag waved by many celebrities, including Jenny McCarthy, who strongly believes that the MMR vaccine is a cause for her child's autism, despite no scientific evidence to support such a claim. So what's the lesson here? I personally propose that we should be more careful when we establish causal relationships between things. Just because some diseases occur or symptoms are detected just after a vaccine is made does not mean that vaccines are the causes for those diseases. That's equivalent to blaming ice cream consumption for drownings on the beach just because both things are more frequent during the same time of the year. People are entitled to their own beliefs, but humans' reasoning abilities are the main thing that distinguishes us from other animals. We cannot be so obstinate that we refuse to be persuaded by proof. And if our beliefs contradict science and put our children in danger, then those misguided beliefs should not be put above the law at all. To achieve herd immunity and stop the spread of a pathogen within a community, it is not necessary to vaccinate everybody. However, I believe that everybody who can get vaccinated ought to be vaccinated because highly infectious diseases require very high levels of immunization to reach herd immunity, and because there are always people who can't get vaccinated for certain medical reasons, and they are the ones who need herd immunity protection. I want you to look at this picture because this is the type of consequence that the selfish act of not getting vaccinated can have. Her name is Scarlett Rombeck, and she was 7 weeks old when she almost had her life taken away from her because she contracted pertussis, also known as whooping cough. This disease was almost eradicated decades ago because of herd immunity. She was too young and was just 1 week away from her scheduled DTP vaccine that would have protected her from this disease. Did this happen in a developing country? No. Did this happen 50 years ago? Also no. This happened right here in Ontario last year. I'd like to leave you with one last final thought. Vaccines are proven to work, reducing the incidence of diseases all over the world, but do you know how many human diseases have actually been eradicated worldwide? Just one, the smallpox. The rest still exist, and they can come back with a fury if we act irresponsibly and do not achieve herd immunity. So, Returning to my initial question about Ferrero Rochers, knives, and cigarettes, I honestly believe that unvaccinated kids in our schools are just as dangerous. Nobody has the right to become a living, killing machine spreading viruses and bacteria within our community. This is precisely why we are making a lot of sacrifices right now to stop the spread of COVID-19. Nobody wants to stop seeing their friends or miss their prom or any important milestone because of all this imposed social distancing, or see the economy fall and their parents let off from work, but we must do our part to slow the spread of the novel coronavirus. Eventually, hopefully in the near future, science will prevail and we'll have access to a preventative vaccination for the COVID-19 disease. I plead to everyone to do the right thing and trust the evidence to protect yourself, your loved ones, and the rest of the population. Otherwise, all this imposed social distancing and economic strife would have been all for nothing. We cannot allow our irrational fears to be more powerful than our sense of responsibility towards public health. Science has demonstrated time and time again that fears of vaccination are not substantiated or supported by facts. On the contrary, vaccines are our best allies in the pursuit of healthier and happier lives. So we continue to collectively hold our breath for a COVID-19 vaccination to be developed and widely available. Thank you.